Hey guys, welcome back to Solo in Seattle podcast. This is going to be season 2, episode 3, and today I have a good one. I have my guest, my friend Betty. And
Hey
Betty is,
guys.
yes, Betty is one of Seattle's greatest. You guys may know her, you may not know her, but you will need to know her. Our girl Betty pops up in the Seattle downtown corridor with Dee's dogs. So she is Seattle's famous. She is Seattle's royalty. I personally love her. So let me plug your business real quick,
Thank
Betty. Go.
you.
Yes. So if
Thank
you
you,
want to talk
thank
a little bit
you.
about your business and remind people who they are listening to, Seattle's
Okay.
greatest. We got her on tap. There she goes.
Okay. Nice to hear from you guys. Thank you for inviting me onto the show. I'm really excited to be doing this. I've never really gotten asked to be on a podcast, so I'm really looking forward to how it goes. Again, Amanda did introduce me as Seattle's famous. I don't want to toot my own horn, but
Toot, toot.
I've been in the city for a while now as far as doing the D's dogs. I actually hopped on with my sister about like a good 10 years ago. I love what I do. That's honestly what carries me through in the long hard days that I do have. But as far as working in the city, I feel like I have built a really cool community around me. And although I might not know a lot of people, I know that the streets and the folks know about me and have seen me around.
These dogs. Yeah,
Hell yeah. So the infamous Seattle dog with the caramelized onions, cream
that's right.
cheese,
That's
the good
right.
stuff.
And usually, where can people find you? So that way, like during the day, sometimes you do pop ups, right?
Yeah, so I actually, if we're not doing an event elsewhere out of Seattle, we're strictly in the downtown corridor. So I'm either by Paramount Theater doing events up there, like right next to the theater, and then we also do climate pledge events off of First and Harrison. I'm right out front the arena itself. We do the hockey games, all the good stuff. I'm actually starting the NCAA March Madness tomorrow.
Exciting.
And I know that goes from, I'd say, like, 11 in the morning to, like, 7 at night, so there's, like, several games that the college basketball players will be playing, and, I'll be right out front serving dogs, so
All right.
yeah.
And then if you're not at Pledge, if you're not at Paramount, then everybody from the streets know where
X
you're gonna be
Stadium,
at late
baby,
night.
yes, Pioneer Square, you know what it is, I'm sure y'all heard it
Yes,
before. It's
yes,
not the safest sometimes, but, I mean, it's definitely where we make our majority of our money, honestly. We've built that location now for, like, the last 8 years, and, a lot of the people, I don't you know what I mean? Hood rats, classy, I mean, all the whole 9, they all go to X Stadium, and, at least I've heard of the place. A couple blocks down from, like, the Lumen Field, so a lot of the Seahawks events that go through there, all the good little parties,
yep.
Halloween, the bar hopping, we serve all of those people, and we're right off of 2nd Avenue in South
All right,
Main.
perfect. So that leads me into how long have we known each other?
Oh my goodness. Since what, last summer?
Last summer, I was on my hood rat shit.
Yes, she was outside, y'all, she was outside. And
Yes,
it was so crazy how we met too. It was just you happened to be in line, very cordial, very sweet. I don't know what it was, but I see thousands of women, I mean, almost every day.
yeah,
And just the connection that it was just on and popping as soon
on
as
and
I see
popping.
you. It was
Yeah.
I need to be friends with Amanda.
Yes, I need to be friends with Betty,
I
seriously.
swear.
And so was I had a whole run because girl, I was outside, what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes. I'm so happy you was because you were pretty consistent being outside too. You know
Yes,
what I mean? Like, it was great. I was like, "I can't wait to see my girl this weekend."
yes,
And I mean, obviously, we got to spend some more time outside
outside of that, right, yeah,
of that, but the prior of the initial meeting was almost
yeah.
every weekend at a stadium.
Girl, every weekend I was her, and then I found her.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, so once Betty and I actually moved from the hot dog cart into a friendship,
Right.
and we exchanged numbers because, again, it was like this immediate vibe, this immediate connection. It was just so good, and then we started, hanging out outside of that. I literally would call Betty and be like, "Girl, where are you at? I have people to bring through."
Yes,
And
the
so once
connections were endless.
well, and one thing is I will always support my girl's business. No matter where I'm at, and I'm not outside anymore like talking about, I done went back in,
Right,
but but
right, we can get
but I am good for a random night outside, and I will always call
absolutely.
you and be like, "Girl, where are you parked at? We're coming through." I will not eat anyone else's hot dog, period.
Just saying,
Remember
okay.
remember that one night I went to the Usher concert and homegirl got a hot dog from another cart? And I was like
You're like, "What are you eating, girl? Throw that away."
I was like, "Throw that shit in the trash and come buy her hot dog." I was like, "I don't care if you just bought a hot dog, you're buying her hot dog."
Period, yes, and that's what I honestly do love about you too, like, you even if you're not outside or whatever, like, your girls will be like, "Amanda, where's she at?" Or you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I know they're talking about me, right?
right.
And so you'll be like, "Oh," like, you'll text me even if you're in bed or anything and be like, "Girl, my girls are out there looking for a hot dog, where you at?" You
Yes,
know?
where are you
So
at?
it's
Becau
very, like,
Yep.
like, you're always supporting me even if it's not you initially, it's you because of your friends, so I
Yeah,
love it.
I will always, always, always send somebody your way first and foremost and promote your business like nobody's business because
Yes.
that's what true friendship is about. And friendships born out of the most inorganic ways
Absolutely,
that
right,
call to be organic friendships
right.
because you like you said, you meet thousands of women. And remember I
Thousands.
I texted you one time, I was like, "Thanks for choosing me." I was like, "Thanks for" what did I say? Something
Yeah.
it was like, "Out of all the hood rats that you could be
Right?
friends with, you chose me."
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you got a good head on your shoulders,
Yeah.
okay? You can
Yeah,
also play hood rat and good girl, and I love that, like,
that part,
you know
because,
what I'm
like
saying?
yeah, because even when I do go to the skeeziest spots, like, I still hold myself in a way that commands grace.
Uh,
And I don't even be outside to be outside for looking for anybody because I don't like that.
it it just comes to you, doesn't it?
I girl, we not this is your interview.
Right, 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 right.
So, leading into the next question then, have you ever been married? Are you currently married, divorced, contemplating divorce, single, in a situationship, dating with intention, dating to pass time with no intentions? Any of those things?
So, okay, so I am very single, but with that being said, I would like to date with intentions.
Okay.
I have not actually been in what I consider to be an actual dating experience. I've never actually lived with a man or have had that experience yet.
Yeah.
I don't think that, unfortunately, I feel the dating scene is so washed. And by what I mean by that is that people's intentions on dating aren't very traditional anymore. And I've noticed that, and you would think that I would run into so many type of candidates just from being outside on the streets and just seeing people pass by and
Mhm.
things like that, and you would think that I would have a couple of people on my roster, but I really
Yeah.
don't. I mean, like I said, I definitely like to be in, let's say, in communities where I know that I'm able to be accepted more, I guess you could say.
Okay.
I just feel that I have yet to really match someone's energy, and I feel that a lot of people take me as maybe intimidating to date,
Mhm.
and I don't mean to sound conceited in that way, but I feel like I don't know if it's by the money that I'm making or the way that I carry myself. I just feel that a lot of guys kind of
Yeah.
aren't really on my level or on my caliber, I guess you
You
could
know,
say.
and the thing too is and I've had the same drama with revisiting situations with people and dating them, and then I'm too much because I'm
Right.
able to hold my own. I'm able to if I want to go out to eat, I'm not going to Google some chain restaurant. I'm looking
Right.
for an experience,
Right.
and that's what I'm getting from what you're saying is the men that are out there or we come across they're not used to certain calibers because they have been allowed to get away with bare minimum.
Absolutely.
So the dating scene, not to mention in Seattle, is very small.
Very, very. And if you're not dating the same man, you probably are.
Yeah, and
or have.
or someone in your circle has,
Right.
like, fished around,
Right.
especially because it seems everyone kinda starts at a stadium.
Right.
So if you have recreated there, you have swam in the same pissy ass pool.
Pissy.
And so you just have to be really careful out there because people are out there swapping spit and doing the most, and
Absolutely.
I am cut from a different cloth because I genuinely go out to listen to music and people watch.
Mhm.
I'm not outside, especially not in a stadium, looking for
Right.
my next
Not.
type of situation,
Absolutely not.
who are more than likely recycled. Well, let's just call it anywhere
Let's
within
just call it compost, baby.
that part, but also in the downtown corridor, we all frequent these same places. You will see these same exact people outside of your stands, like, you get to know the same people,
Absolutely.
and then you see the same people with different people, and then you see that person
Right.
with someone else, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
It's just like a chain type situation. I also vend over by Sarajevo, and
yep,
it's like a Latin derived club over in the Belltown area. And just because we're in different districts doesn't mean that the same people don't go to the same clubs.
yep,
And then that limits your whole dating experience. And
yeah,
honestly, I have never really gotten the chance to really date anybody from Seattle. I have tried in the past, I'm not gonna lie. But with being like an icon and a staple in Seattle, I've kind of leaned away from not dating in the city because I've had experiences where my partner at the time has, bringing me gifts and flowers from the market and things like that while I'm working, which is great. But then they kind of like overstep their boundaries
yeah.
and with just kind of, like, loitering around my
Yeah,
business.
go find you some business.
Yeah, like, go do something, and then that also obviously is a telltale of who they are as a person, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, "What are you doing hanging around my cart all the time?" You know what I mean? Like, "Don't you got work? Don't you got a job?" Not to, like, say that they didn't, but I just don't wanna be so accessible, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Well, and also you are at work.
Exactly.
And I'm guilty of this too, because 'cause I'll be loitering around your hot dog stand, be trying to have whole ass conversations, and you're the sweetest. You'll entertain it for a second, you know what I'm saying? But you're like, "Sis, alright." So I totally get that, but I mean, when it comes to a love interest, this is not time for one-on-one. And
Not at all.
I don't know how you feel about being showered with gifts while at work, but I don't know, I feel like that's kind of embarrassing. Okay, now I have to take time and attention, and if I don't seem grateful,
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
I mean,
There's a time and a place, for
yeah,
everything.
yeah, for sure, like, where were you before I set up?
Right, exactly, right, or after. It's not like I work all day, and if I do, like, my days, you would know my schedule, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And, yeah, so I've dated mostly outside of the States, like, I fly my one of my biggest hobbies is traveling,
Yep.
and, I have had, like, serious relationships overseas because I just feel that it's almost not that I don't want someone here with me, it's
Mhm.
just I feel that my work and life schedule is so busy that if I'm able to, like, take the time out of my day to, like, talk to that person or give him my undivided attention while I'm there spending a couple of weeks with that person is way better than having to try and fit all of that in while being here in Seattle. But I don't also like the whole long distance thing as well. I know I'm kind of going back and forth on how
Yeah,
I feel, but it's just the whole feeling lonely part is
but it's your
pretty
life, right?
hard.
Yeah, it's your life, and you can control your life and who you want in that.
Yeah.
And the thing too is I think what you're saying is that
Mhm.
you like the characteristics that someone out of the country may possess that might align better with you in what you're looking for.
Mhm.
And yes, you want somebody there, but you also like your space.
Absolutely.
And the thing is I feel you, girl. I have been alone for so long that
Right.
It's hard for me to want somebody in my space, but, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, much like it sounds like you're not opposed to it.
Absolutely
It's
not.
just being able to find somebody that you are able to link with, that you enjoy spending that time and space with. So let's talk about
Absolutely.
it. So in one of let's say in one of your most favorite relationships, did you have intimacy in that relationship, or was there lack of intimacy?
It was a
And
lot of intimacy, a lot of it, and I'm very touchy-feely,
okay,
super intimate woman. I mean, that's definitely one of my love languages is to be touched and to be filled on and to be caressed with. Um, I honestly, from time to time, do talk to him. I'm
okay.
not gonna lie. He's in Jamaica,
Mm,
and, I would say I would say that he would probably be, like, my first and only at this point, only love that I've actually had.
yeah,
We were together for probably, like, 3.5 years, and I myself would go back and forth to Jamaica. Like, I'd visit him almost 7 or 8 times out of the year.
yeah,
And, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Miami, so you fly into Miami and then go into Jamaica. So it wasn't super international to
okay,
where, like, I could afford seeing him, and being with him for that time.
got
Uh,
it. So speaking of that, and if you're comfortable,
yeah,
let's talk about the sex part of it.
yeah,
When you were happy and in there, was there sex or was there lack of sex? To go into this further, because you only saw him 7 or 8 times a year, I'm sure it was
right,
hot and heavy, but it's not
absolutely.
current, so it's like, what was the breakdown? So it's kind of like, where do you think it started and where do you think it ended? If you're comfortable sharing.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it was a time where I had lost a whole bunch of weight, first of all. When I had seen him, I probably lost 100 plus pounds. And so
Amazing.
thank you. And, at the time, I was super I felt lighter on my toes, you know what I mean? I felt very sexy, I felt very wanted by him.
Mhm.
And it was super hot and heavy, like you said.
Yeah.
And what like, our most of our relationship pretty much was based off of intimacy. Because I
Yeah.
mean, the times that we were to see each other, it was like we would go down by the pool or whatever. It would just be like vacation, like,
Mhm.
always, you know? So we
Mhm.
never, like, had a lot of arguments in the relationship, and I think that's kinda where things started kind of, like, falling apart. Because there's not an actual relationship that I'm sure you can even think of that you've had in your past time that has always been like a fairy tale, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's just not
for sure.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. With that being said, where do you think, because you guys were long distance,
Mhm.
were there trust issues?
There were trust issues, but I felt that I would be bringing that up more so than he would.
Yeah.
And not to throw a pity party or anything like that for myself, but I don't have a father figure in my life, like, at all. And so, with that being said, I have had to really understand what a man is supposed to be in your life and how you're supposed to be loved by one. And I was brought up on Disney movies. So, with that being said, I'm very much of a fairy tale like person. I know that's obviously not the right way to think, but up until
It's not the incorrect way of thinking either, right?
right,
Just because I feel like too that, I mean, whether we have a father or not in our lives, we all subscribe to the Prince Charming.
absolutely right.
And it is not out of pocket to feel like some of those characteristics actually exist.
Right. True. That's true.
But we have to be very mindful of love bombing.
A
We have
And
to be
I
very.
really feel that that was kind of what was going on in the relationship.
Yep.
He came from nothing, so which made me feel that I had to be everything to him.
Yeah.
Being his mother, being his auntie, you know what I'm saying? Like, just being everything, but obviously, the sex part was obviously on between us. Like, we both were super attracted towards each other, which,
Yeah.
you know, prolonged the relationship probably a lot longer than need be, but I started getting insecure, to answer your question, about how he was living his life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After me pretty much supporting him financially, I would see through Instagram posts that he was at different kinds of parties and different kinds of events that he normally didn't go to because he didn't have the means to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
But now that I was in his life, you know what I mean? I would try and implement things like, "Oh, why don't you go to school? Why don't you go and do this?" And kind of like mother him into a man that I would want to be with forever.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, and I think too that's like where we strong women come in. It's because we have built empires and we have figured it out to
Right.
be able to provide for ourselves out of necessity. And
Mhm.
so when you run into somebody who you're attracted to, who you're willing to give a chance to, who you're wanting to spend time with intimately or just share space with, you want to have them be able to keep you or maintain you where you're at.
Absolutely.
So it's not impossible to believe that, somebody with a little guidance and encouragement can actually follow through on that vision, but it has to
Right.
be theirs.
Exactly. That's where the breakdown started happening, I would feel,
Yeah.
is that I wanted him to have more of a life than he was having. And if that person or partner, whether it be a man, a woman, or whatever, in your life doesn't want those same things, then it's like you're leading, you know what I mean? Like you're portraying a life that he doesn't see or she doesn't see or even want.
Yeah.
So, after so long of, like, trying to persuade him into doing better things for himself and for his life, it really wasn't for me because I mean, it was for me, but it was more so to build his own life and self-esteem and confidence and, maybe down the line, I would have applied to bring him to the States. I was even thinking that far into having, like, a solid foundation for both of us. Like I said, I feel that you just said women can bring men up and vice versa, but it's for your partner to decide if they wanna do the steps to into becoming a stronger partner.
Yeah, and girl, it's not just men outside of the United States who behave like that because I was in a long-term relationship with somebody for almost a decade, a Seattleite. I met
Right.
him online dating and he presented as one person and much like your guy, the mask came off after X amount of time. I was already X amount of years in and we had built our life together. We went into this with the intention of getting married. And then a couple years ago, when we decided that it was no longer fruitful, if you will, he was just like, I'm out. He was not who I first started dating. Well, and I joke around and I'm like, that motherfucker went from Urkel to Urkel.
Okay.
Like
Right.
he straight bossed up on me and dipped, baby. I was like, he got contacts on and everything. Okay.
Oh, damn, he had the glasses too?
Yes, he had glasses at first, and when he dipped, baby, he had a whole new haircut. He had contacts. Yes,
Made him better for the next bitch, is that what's going on?
I mean, I don't know because I don't even think that ever happened for him. I don't think it played out how he read it to me, how he lined it out. It was gonna happen. I don't know. I haven't talked to the man in years, and if he listens to this podcast, he knows who I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so
Absolutely.
my profiles are always public for anybody's enjoyment.
Mhm. I know that's right. You wanna scroll by, you
Eh,
can.
yes, run them views up, please, and thank you.
Okay.
So moving on to the next question, it leads into, do you have children? Do you feel pressure to have children? And do you still have your identity after having or not having children? This is such a triggering question for a lot of people because society presents us as females saying that this is our duty.
Absolutely.
And there's no right way to answer it other than authentically being yourself and
Right.
standing in your truth. For me, just to share, having children was never in my cards, but I had one.
Right.
So, back to you.
Right. So so yes and no. So yes, I have kids that I did not conceive. I feel like that they're pretty much the same, except for I have yet to have that experience with someone. I think having children is definitely a beautiful experience. Not to say that single mothers are outcasted by not being able to share that experience with that person or whatever. I to answer your question, yes, I've got 2 beautiful kids. I have a they're twins and they're 10 years old. One's a boy and one's a girl, so they're fraternal
Cuties.
in that matter. I've raised them since day one. So my sister is unfortunately out here somewhere in Seattle and she is strung out on drugs and has been, but decided to have kids. And I had been their main mother, you could
Your
say.
support system, yeah.
Yeah, and it takes a village,
Mhm.
so I'd like to say that my other 2 sisters have definitely been there to create this beautiful village,
Good.
and they're not the kids have not missed out on any kind of love or, um, I guess you could say, parenting advice or any of that kind of stuff. They do often see their mother, so we're not, like, hiding anything from them as
Okay.
far as, like, what is going on in their biological mother and father. Unfortunately, the father's not around, but to get back to me, I definitely have always dreamt about having kids, honestly. The white picket fence, that's been me. Like, I've always wanted to be married, have you know what I mean, have 3 children, you know what I mean? Like, society is not really cut out to be having kids at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just feel that Instagram totally has ruined a lot of things for people, I feel. And I feel that this Instagram reality BS on there is obviously not true. It takes a lot of work to have children, and I don't
Mhm.
wanna do it by myself because I think it's something that you share with someone.
Mhm.
Just like the whole going to visits, getting my belly rubbed, you know what I mean? Like, I
Mm.
want that whole experience, and
Yeah.
to do it by yourself, I mean, it's just as beautiful, like, if you wanna have kids, go for it, go so be it, but my ideal would be to be married and to share that experience with a man that I
Good.
love.
Yeah, and I mean, there is nothing wrong with you commanding that energy.
Right.
Because no one ever expects to not be in that scenario unless you're going through like artificial insemination and you're
Right.
choosing your donor and you're like, no, I'm committing to doing this solo. And for me, for example, Donovan's dad and I were together all through college, and I physically wasn't able to have children. So we were told because
Wow.
I had some heavy medical issues that I had to go through radiation for at a young age. And I
Wow.
went through a series of treatments. It's dangerous for you to conceive. And then there were some other like medical issues like PCOS, which I'm a huge proponent on
Mhm.
with my social media and
Right.
all of those things. But girl, Superman came through with that super sperm and knocked me the hell up. The thing is, he told me I'm not ready to be a father when I
Uh,
told him I was pregnant. And so I gave him the option to opt out, and he
by, like,
didn't.
aborting or, like
We were too far along. Yeah.
oh,
I mean,
okay.
but that would have been on the table had I known sooner
Right.
that I was pregnant, but I didn't even know because I was so young and I didn't realize the changes that were going on in my body.
Mhm.
And I didn't really have anyone to talk to because I come from a very strong Catholic family system.
Absolutely.
And although, like, nobody is naive to 2 teenagers spending the night with one another, I still was like, "Well, I don't know why my boobs hurt. I don't know why I'm sleeping so much." And I was a very, very thin girl, and
Mhm.
I did not start showing until, like, 7 months in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so anyways, I come from a very strong Catholic background. He comes from a hypervigilant Christian background where his parents, like, go to church ridiculously, in my opinion.
Mm.
The mom was like, "You have to get married," and my parents were like, "Don't marry this guy,
Right.
not a good fit, like, we will help you," and I was like, "No, I love him," you
Right.
know, and so my dumbass goes and marries this idiot, and then
Right.
a year into the marriage, I'm like, "Mm-mm, this cannot be my life. This
At
cannot be my
all,
life."
right.
So I chose when my son was 1 years old, and I share this in my season 1 podcast, I run it down about, like, the timeline and series of events. I gave this man my 20s, and I stayed married to him for a long time before we got divorced because I was holding on to this concept and this
Right.
construct of we're all gonna have the same last name. I still hold his last name. Girl, all of my licensures, my degrees is his last name, and the disgust that I feel because I
'Cause it
literally
doesn't
held on.
represent who you are as a person.
Yeah, I literally held on to this fake sense of self that in order for me to feel represented, I had
Right,
to have the same name as my son because I
right.
didn't want people to look at me otherwise.
Absolutely.
And I don't, I know for a fact a lot of people can align with that same vision because there is
Mhm,
such a shame cast on single women
mhm.
who have children. I don't care how progressive the world seems to be. We still trip when we see people publicly breastfeeding.
Absolutely, right.
The shock value of that, and it's like it's such a
Right, right.
natural
I'm like
process, and that's what
right.
this podcast is about. It's, really about, like, being able to own who you are in your moment, in your truth, because all of us have lived several different lives.
Mhm.
We have hopefully developed and moved and seen different ways of things to be able to say, "I'm not at this point in my life," or, "I will not allow certain things to happen in my life because it's unfair."
Absolutely.
Or you have unfortunately or fortunately seen your friends go through situations, marriages, relationships where you're like, that's not
Not
gonna
for
that's not gonna
me.
work."
Yeah.
It's not judging anybody. It's just being able to have that inside scoop of like, if this is how y'all are moving and this is how you're portraying yourself, this is not something that I am actively going to participate in.
Absolutely.
And like recently with me, you met my
Mhm.
ex-husband.
Right. Yes, I
And
have.
we thought, like, he was completely someone else. When he showed up here and I introduced him to you and we all were just hanging out or whatever, he really presented as one thing, and then shortly after, the mask came off, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you're still the same person from 19 years ago. We're not doing this." And so, he was public facing for a quick stint on my Instagram, and then he disappeared. 'Cause
Right.
I was like, "Mm-mm."
We can't be
Like,
betraying this.
nope,
No.
nope. I mean, and everybody really wanted to see us win
Yes,
because
definitely.
the way that it was presented, the
Right.
storyline of it was who gets this opportunity?
Honestly. Honestly.
And then it happens and you're like, I'm glad I missed that opportunity."
Yes. Honestly.
And
Yes. I had been engaged before to a fairy tale in my head again.
yeah.
It was beautiful. He proposed while we were on this yacht in Dubai. I mean, like, it was like the
Ooh.
whole 9 yards. But again, I was marrying into the fairy tale moment versus who he was as a person.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, I dodged a bullet, but
Mhm.
at the time, I was so excited, and I'm first generation Ethiopian. Being in an African home, you marry regardless.
Girl.
You have children regardless of your happiness. It's more so of a portraying factor of what I have versus what I don't.
Yeah.
And it's not about your happiness because 'cause I've seen it through my mother, you know what I mean? Like, was married for 30 years and, beautiful businesses and, that's where I get my business work ethic from, and thankfully I've got that in part, but I am not the one to settle, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm able to accept love in different forms, but I'm not gonna settle for what I know is not for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That brings me to my next question. Do you feel like you're happy or content in your current life?
You know, I don't wanna say that a man sh could carry me through by being content in my life right now, but I am happy, honestly. I'm happy with my work and my career. That brings me more than half of how I feel about myself, honestly.
Yeah.
The the community and how they treat me and how they represent me and talk about me is honestly everything to me. Honestly unmatched, honestly. And I have met so many different kinds of public figures in the city, and I really feel that their opinions have really radiated off of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm very happy in my career, although a little male attention wouldn't be too bad, honestly. I really feel that I'm pretty much like in my prime, my mid 30s, and I know what I want. And so if I'm not gonna get that, then I'll just have to go hop somewhere else.
No, for
And
sure.
I felt that hopping to Tennessee or Houston and being around our kind, you know what I mean? They'll appreciate, who I am as a person and what I look
Girl,
like versus
girl, stop. They the same ass hoes.
Alright.
Ew. Do not forget, I come from Texas, where I
That's
grew
true,
up,
that's true, but there's
and
gonna be a lot
I
more Black people around there, let's just put it bluntly, like, there's not enough, like, I feel of, like, all our culture around here in Seattle. Do you agree?
so I agree and I disagree because I feel like somehow I have tapped into Black Seattle. And I feel like I have been able to move in different circles that have positioned me to be able to see what I want to see and see what I don't want to see. Because
Mhm.
I actually was, last night at a bar, and I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and he came from that same perspective of there's not enough Black in Seattle. I said, "But let's look at it from a different perspective. Because you are sitting next to me in this establishment, the owner has come over and personally introduced herself to us.
Right.
And we have had 10 out of 10 service because of who you were at the table with. You have experienced this sitting with me in a
Absolutely.
restaurant."
Yes.
And I didn't have to drop anything. I didn't have to say, who I was, what I
Who
was
you
doing,
are, right,
any of that stuff. And I am just a patron, but I
right.
write a lot of reviews that
Mhm.
get 20 million views.
Counts views, right. Plus.
And so
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, like, and my Instagram gets 40,000 views a month. Like, you've seen the receipts. I am
Right.
not
I
lying.
have.
And so I told him, I said, as Black patrons, we can go into these establishments we otherwise would not frequent and set the tone.
Absolutely.
I said, instead of seeking out where Blackness is, why aren't we moving in circles and setting the tone, saying we can patronize here as well? And
Mhm.
we can have the same exact experience and be ourselves. We were in the middle of the restaurant being catered to.
I love that. I love that.
Otherwise, I personally would never have been in Ballard.
Right.
There's no part of me that's like, I'll go to Ballard today.
Right. No, I'm here.
Yeah,
Right.
and so and then it kind of it moved his frame and his school of thought saying, "You know what? We can recreate and patron, different places we otherwise wouldn't." Because honestly, like, I am guilty of this as well. Somebody will invite me somewhere and I'm like, "Well, what's the temperature?"
Like, who's all there? So true.
And I
So
think that is very much a ism, within
Mhm.
within the community being like, I don't know."
Right.
And then it kills
Right.
me too, this whole Seattle is diverse.
I hate that. Or the Seattle
Seattle
freeze.
But the diversity lacks because of people don't move in the way they should move to enhance their community and lift their community up, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Absolutely.
You also have a major platform to connect your community and your love and your passion as a Black business owner, putting it out there saying, "You know where to find me. You know what I do, and I am well represented as well in this community. Like, I am a staple. I'm a name brand." And
Mhm.
it's so important to be able for you literally to pull up wherever
Mhm.
and be that girl.
It sure could, real quick.
It shows your point to my next question. What is your communication style? Do you feel like you're open? Do you feel like you're honest? Do you think that the person that you would be interested in dating with can read your mind? I was talking to a guy last night at the bar and he was talking about he was following somebody on Instagram or YouTube that was teaching him how to read nonverbal cues.
Okay.
I thought that was very interesting. And also, do you confront issues or do you overlook them? What does it look like for you when you meet someone, right? Is your initial interest, oh, I'm attracted to this guy? And then you kind of peel away the onion or you kind of let it flow. What do you think your communication
Like,
style
in
is?
regards to a man, or is it just in general?
I mean, my podcast is about relationships
Okay.
but you can talk about whatever you want, like your communication
Right.
style in general, or if you're
I'll
pitching
start with
yourself.
in general first
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
proceed
whatever
to,
you
like,
want.
how I feel with a man. So, I am very open. Like, how you meet me is how you'll always see me as.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not really one to switch up as far as I'm very like I said, like, I'm very open. I love to talk about feelings. I'm a very emotional person. I know how to read body language as well,
Yeah.
because although we may not always get someone that's able to talk verbally, body language is a whole different skill, I feel, and I'm
Yeah.
able to read through the lines.
Yeah, she's not lying, cause I'm girl, like, I be thinking about our times when we kiki outside of
Girl,
when we're outside of hanging
I
out,
can look at you from across the street and be like, "Bitch, what the fuck?"
or or if we're, like, eating at a restaurant, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have that look, and we don't
You
even have to
know?
say
You know when you have
anything.
that look with someone and it just you're right on that same wavelength, it's always on and popping between
Yeah.
me and Amanda, it's awesome. I love that we have that, and it's nothing that we, like, taught each other, it's just
No.
you just
It just
know,
happens. Yeah, and that's why I'm laughing because 'cause I'm like, what you're saying is so true. I can definitely
right?
co-sign on what Betty is saying because there have been so many times when we have been hanging out, and it is just 10 out of 10, that nonverbal.
Right. You know what I'm saying? It just be really and if you get it, you get it, and if you
Yeah,
don't, you just don't, go right over your head, and I'm so able to I love people for one, and I think that's kinda where my communication style comes from, is being able to adapt to any kind of room. I'm able to put myself in anybody's room and be able to communicate the way that I do without feeling like I'm being judged.
yeah.
And I really am thankful for that I do have that skill because a lot of people lack that skill
Amen.
and or don't know how to respond without feeling pressured or any of that kind of stuff. I'm definitely obviously I know how like I said, I know how to read the room and I know when to say and when not to say. There are some people that don't know how to hold back even though they should sometimes. And like I said, I'm just thankful that I have that I have the ability to know when to say and when not to say.
And how are you in your relationships? So, like, say something happens and somebody makes you uncomfortable.
Mhm. I'm the person to definitely, um, kind of dissect the room first, you know what I mean? Approach the person, whether it be my best friend or a man that I'm seeing, and really understand where they may be coming from first
Okay.
before I put my judgment on how I'm feeling. But
Okay.
I am not the person to let the elephant just walk the room. I cannot. That's just one of my biggest pet peeves is just kinda letting shit slide under the rug and just kinda just patting it down with some sand and hoping it won't seep out, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not that kind of person, and I feel like I've really been in, my intermediate family has really taught me to not talk about feelings. I was
Yeah.
really as a kid or at a young age, as a child, I was just taught to not really talk about how I felt.
Yeah.
And I feel that I've outgrown that and I've become like I had been a black sheep of my family and my intermediate family, I would say, for the longest time just because of my outspokenness.
Mhm.
And but that has carried me through into becoming the woman that I am today and that I'm able to talk about my feelings and my emotions. I think it's a really good trait to have, honestly.
Yeah.
Um but you need to know, like, it goes back to, like, knowing how and when to express yourself.
Yeah, and you always wanna carry yourself in a way that protects who you are as a person mentally and emotionally,
Absolutely.
because you can have that fierceness and you can have that too, but sometimes it is met with resistance. Like, I think about all the time, you always talk about how much you enjoy you and I's relationship because we align, we're, very similar in the way that we approach things, and you have seen me outside of your hot dog stand, like, get into it with somebody, and
Yes,
it's just like, I don't be doing shit.
right.
You
I
know?
really feel that our aura brings so much, like, good and sometimes, like, the bad wants to affect our aura, but we're
Yeah,
not allowing that, and so when people know that you're not really, like, able to be touched in that, like, negative way, they
yeah,
try and dig and dig and dig, and when they don't see that reaction that they want,
yeah,
they either fall off or they'll try and poke you and provoke you, like, in a different way,
yeah.
but
And that's one thing too that I love about you and your personality. And I've been able to see it in several different forms. Like I've seen you while you're at your business. I've hung out with you on multiple different occasions in a restaurant setting and in a bar setting.
Yeah,
And we've been able to see how we work in different circles.
definitely.
And I mean, I think it's something to say when if and when you do meet a partner or somebody that you do have a love interest with, that you are, like you said, able to have a communication style that protects your energy.
Mhm.
Also doesn't command such a passiveness, which you may have inherently learned because of culture or upbringing.
Right, right.
And to say, you know what, I have grown into my own person with my
Mhm.
own visibilities and my own responses to situations, no matter how that was born, right?
Right,
Whether it is, rejecting ideals of, certain variances that you have witnessed, or being able to tap into what they call your femininity. And
right.
I mean, there's, like you said, Instagram has created this unrealistic expectation of gender roles,
Absolutely.
you
Oh my
know?
goodness.
And it's like, why can't we be powerful and have a man who thinks that is boss status? And again, I had a conversation with somebody last night and they're like, "Well, Amanda, you're a very powerful woman, but I've been with powerful women and it doesn't work because I want somebody who is more docile."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Well, you have to step forward, sir."
And
One
take the reins.
Listen, and I told him straight like that. I said, "If you were to step forward and put your hand in the small of my back and lead."
You can lead anybody if that was the case.
Listen,
You're preaching, okay?
listen. If you step into it, Imma step beside it.
Absolutely.
But if you are beside me, then you are claiming to be my equal,
Absolutely.
and my energy commands results.
If they could hear these snaps, girl, if they could hear these snaps, I'm trying to tell you.
I mean, I am just not here for 99% of what people are subscribing to on the internet. All right, so last question. This one
Right.
is a deep one.
Okay.
So, what have you done that was the strongest thing in your life that has guided you to where you are currently?
So, um, a couple of different things, and it goes back um, to my family, to my intermediate family. My mother had a corner store off of 23rd and Cherry in the CD for about
Yes.
30 years, and, they finally bought the building out from her. She had about, like, 7 years left on her pension, so, she got paid. Um, and she prior to that, she knew that the building was gonna be bought out by Paul Allen and before him passing or whatever, and so he had proposed the deal to her, and she was like, "Hey," kinda coming to me about, she really, at this point, did not accept me working outside at a hot dog stand.
Yeah.
It was very degrading, to her. It was very, like I said, going back to, like, what status reads versus what your child wants, and you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
things like that, and so she had asked me to quit D's Dogs and was like, "I wanna give you the store," you know what I mean? "I want you to implement," you know what I mean, "your youth into the community," and really was gonna let me take over the reins and take over the shop. And she already had established the shop for 20 plus years. So I was gonna implement maybe like creating like a hookah lounge maybe in the back or something. She had so much space that I could really turn it around. It
Yeah.
was kind of falling to pieces because at that point she was going through a divorce and she was really just focusing in on her own life, which I really wanted her to. So it was gonna be like a huge business move.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay." You know how much I deeply love Dee's dogs. And
Yes.
so it took a lot from me to have to leave my best friend's business, and I had put in so much work behind it that or my best friend was like, "You do what you gotta do. I'll
Yeah.
support you regardless," and that's just the type of woman she is. And so I quit, and that all fell to pieces. My mother took all my recommendations away from me and was just like, "No, you're gonna do it like this, and
Mm.
we're gonna have it like this," and so she pretty much lied to me, you know what I mean, initially, and just didn't she wanted me to be, like, dependent on her still. She
Yeah.
felt that
Control.
I was creating exactly, I was creating a life that she didn't really say or have any, take in, and I was, becoming a woman without her initially. And
Yeah.
so that really hurt our relationship really, really bad because it was to the point where she didn't trust me enough into becoming a woman without her. And so I went back to these dogs full fledged. It kind of put a little, gap in between my mother and I's relationship. And unfortunately, her business kind of went down the drain with no help and things like that. But she had a legacy to carry. And I did too, because at this point I was like 4 years in with these dogs
Yeah.
and had already established my clientele base. And this is prior, like the nightlife and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I was just really more so out there during the day and things like that. And so I would say that that kind of created a space for me to grow into someone that I know I could be and achieve.
Yeah.
And with my best friend's help, I really felt that I have, grown into a special type of person.
I love that.
I would say that also another thing was that with my intermediate with my father, I had to have closure. I mean, like, I was just drowning all throughout high school, like, my end of my high school years. I was really, really big and overweight, and I just didn't really have much for myself, and I kept on going back and forth about visiting my father, and I hadn't seen him, like, in, like, the 8 years or whatever. And so I finally found where he was living at, and he was in Atlanta. He was in, like, the Buckhead area, so he was, obviously living a good life being in
Yeah.
that area, and long story short, I visited him, and I thought that I would rekindle a relationship that I had in my head growing, but he had totally moved on, like, he physically and mentally was just not there with me anymore, was actually very shocked when I did see him, and he had asked if, like, my siblings or my mother had passed. That's, like, the only reason why I would be in front of his face at that
Oh my
point
goodness, the
was,
rejection.
you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly, and so I really thought that I was gonna have a breakthrough with that, and it really gave me the closure that I needed,
Yep.
and honestly, like, I have forgiven him, and I have, like, a much closer relationship with God than I have ever,
Girl, 'cause you
and
had to lean on that baby. Oh my
yes, I
goodness.
did have to lean on someone, honey, and it was really hard, but that gave me a breakthrough of my life. I was okay, none of my intermediate really wanna, like, support me at this point. He told me flat out that he's just done being a father. So,
Yeah.
it took a toll, but I needed that to really move on into the woman that I am now today.
Amen. And I think that does have so much to say about you as a person because you were at a very, very pivotal point in your young life and you made
Mhm.
that decision to confront
Right.
and you made that decision to accept.
Absolutely.
And then you made that decision to allow and then you closed it out.
Absolutely.
And it may not have been in that order. It
Right.
may not have been in that process and it may not have even been quick,
Right.
but it's because you took that step forward. You were in control of the narrative,
Right.
regardless of how it was spun with the other participating party.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing worse than rejection
Yes.
on any level, on any
Right.
level,
Totally.
and I mean, that's a whole different podcast. I just want to thank you so much for being my second official guest.
Yes.
The relaunch of Solo in Seattle. I had been talking about relaunching this podcast for a year,
Right.
and I had gotten in my own way, gotten in my own head. I created 8 episodes last year. Actually, the year mark was on the recording of my first episode. I didn't
Oh,
even realize
funny.
it. I started that last podcast to do the same thing you did with your dad was, like, to try to figure out some closure. Relationship had ended, then I was just, like, spiraling because I just did not want to believe that the last decade of my life was over. You lied to me, bro.
Right.
I literally was dealing with caring for my father, who at the time we didn't know if he was going to make it or not because of some really heavy hitting medical issues. I was torn in between breakup and I was torn in between caring for my elderly father. My podcast season one was born out of insomnia.
Wow.
And it is literally 8 episodes straight off the dome, not pre scripted. Much like this episode, we have questions that I give you a heads up on, but it's a free
Right.
flow.
Totally.
There's no editing, there's no any of that stuff because I like it to be real and organic.
Right. Raw, if you
Straight up raw. I am so happy that you are being a part of this passion project, and I can't wait
Yeah.
to see where this takes us. And
That's
you are always welcome to hop on another episode if there's something that,
okay.
yeah, if there's something that you want to talk about together, tease out, have a little girl talk. I would love to have you back.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto this.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to tell my listeners, my followers, Betty's listeners, Betty's followers, that this podcast is and always we will be about choosing yourself
Mhm. Amen.
and putting yourself first and understanding how to be seen after not feeling seen in your life.
Absolutely.
And that's also how I carry forward my friendships.
Mhm.
Let me know if anybody wants to connect with me on this podcast. If you want to tease out any of the questions that Betty and I went over, let's get deep, let's get raw, let's get in there. And I appreciate
Yes.
everybody listening to Solo in Seattle today.